Commander James Bonner stood in the control room of Earth's military headquarters, his heart pounding. The massive screens around him flickered with chaotic images from a recent attack. A peaceful human colony on the outer edges of the solar system was under siege by the Galactic Empire. The news was grim. As Bonner watched, the faces of terrified colonists flashed across the screen, their cries for help echoing in his ears. It was a sight he could never forget. Just moments ago, he had been enjoying a quiet evening, sipping coffee and planning his next mission. But now everything had changed. The Empire had crossed a line. They had invaded a settlement that had done nothing to provoke them. This colony, made up of families and children, had been thriving, and now it was burning. "Sir!" shouted Lieutenant Sarah Mitchell, his second in command, snapping him out of his daze. "We've intercepted a transmission from the Empire. They're celebrating their victory." Bonner's eyes narrowed as he focused on the screen. The transmission showed alien leaders toasting with their glasses raised high. They laughed and cheered, boasting about their easy victory over the weak humans. With every laugh and cheer, Bonner felt a surge of anger. This was not just a war, it was personal. "Bring up the live feed," he ordered, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside him. The screen switched to a video feed of the colony. It was horrific. Alien soldiers were dragging humans out of their homes, throwing them into cages, and setting fire to everything. He could see families torn apart, mothers screaming for their children. "What have they done?" Bonner whispered, fists clenching at his sides. His heart ached for the innocent lives lost, and he felt a burning desire for revenge ignite within him. "This is unacceptable," he said, turning to his team. "We cannot let this go unpunished. We must respond. We need to assemble the fleet." The room fell silent as Bonner's words sank in. The other officers exchanged glances, understanding the weight of what he was proposing. Earth had always prided itself on diplomacy, but the Empire had made it clear that they respected nothing but power. "Commander," Sarah said carefully, "are we ready to mobilize the Dreadnoughts? That's an enormous risk." "Risk," Bonner shot back. "What is risk compared to the lives lost? What's a risk if we don't avenge them? We have to show them we're not just victims. We are humans, and we will fight back." He felt the tension in the room shift as determination began to replace fear. The officers rallied behind Bonner, their spirits ignited by his words. It was time to take action. Gather every pilot, every technician. We're going to mobilize the fleet and prepare for war. We'll send 700,000 dreadnoughts to show the Empire that Earth is not to be trifled with. Bonner's voice rang out, filled with passion. As the team rushed to their stations, Bonner took a moment to breathe deeply. He thought of the colonists. They deserved to live in peace, free from the threat of tyranny. The Galactic Empire had made a grave mistake, and he would make them pay. With the dreadnoughts under construction and ready to launch, Bonner began mapping their course. Each ship was equipped with cloaking devices, advanced AI systems, and weapons capable of devastating firepower. He believed they could overcome their technologically superior foes. "Commander, we have a brief window before the Empire realizes what we're doing," Sarah announced, urgency creeping into her voice. "Then let's make every second count," Bonner replied, his resolve hardening. "We will strike before they can strike again." The atmosphere in the control room buzzed with energy as they worked feverishly to prepare for war. Bonner felt a mixture of hope and dread. Would they succeed? Would they be able to avenge the lives lost? As the countdown began, Bonner knew that this was just the beginning of a much larger fight. Earth was rising, and they would not back down. He felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders, but he also felt a sense of purpose. He glanced back at the screen showing the ruined colony one last time. "For them," he whispered, vowing to bring justice to those who had suffered. With a final look at his team, he shouted, "Let's show the Empire what humanity is capable of." The room erupted in cheers, ready to face the storm ahead. The Dreadnoughts were about to embark on a mission that would change everything. The time for revenge had come. The control room was alive with activity. Commander James Bonner stood at the center, feeling a mix of excitement and anxiety. All around him, officers and technicians were racing to prepare for the most important mission of their lives. The time for action had finally arrived, and he knew they had to move quickly. Every second counted. "Sir, we've received confirmation that all dreadnoughts are being fueled and armed," Lieutenant Sarah Mitchell reported, her fingers flying over her tablet. "We're ready to begin mobilization as soon as you give the order." Bonner nodded, his mind racing. He had fought many battles before, but this felt different. This was personal. The loss of the colony weighed heavily on him, and he wanted to make sure they did everything right. He needed the fleet to be perfect. "Let's review the deployment plan," Bonner said, moving over to a large holographic display showing the layout of the fleet. Hundreds of dreadnoughts lined up like a massive army ready for battle. "We'll split the fleet into 3 groups. Each group will take a different route to minimize the chance of interception by the Empire." As Bonner spoke, Sarah manipulated the display with swift movements. Colors changed, routes highlighted, and the positions of the dreadnoughts shifted into place. Group 1 will take the left flank, Group 2 will go straight through the asteroid belt, and Group 3 will circle around to approach from the right. "This way we'll catch them off guard," she explained. "Good thinking, Sarah," Bonner replied. "We'll need all the advantages we can get. Remember, the Empire has powerful sensors and they'll be expecting us. Cloaking devices will be crucial for our success. We need to be like shadows, moving unseen." As the officers confirmed their positions, Bonner felt a surge of adrenaline. He knew the technology on the Dreadnoughts was among the best in the universe. Equipped with cloaking devices, they could hide from enemy sensors. Advanced AI systems would assist in targeting and strategizing during the battle. The potential for victory was within their grasp, but only if they executed their plan flawlessly. Suddenly, a young technician rushed into the control room, a worried look on his face. "Commander, we've detected unusual activity near the Empire's border. They might be preparing for a counterattack." Bonner's heart sank. "How long until they're ready?" "Not long, sir. They seem to be mobilizing forces of their own," the technician replied, anxiety in his voice. "Then we don't have a moment to waste," Bonner said, feeling the pressure mount. "Increase the speed of our preparations. I want every ship ready to launch in 30 minutes. "Understood," Sarah called out, relaying the orders to the team. The room erupted into a flurry of movement as everyone raced to complete their tasks. Bonner took a deep breath to steady himself. He could feel the weight of responsibility on his shoulders, knowing that every decision he made would affect the lives of countless people. He thought of the families in the destroyed colony and how he needed to honor their memory by leading the charge against their oppressors. As the team worked tirelessly, Bonner walked around the control room, offering encouragement and support. He stopped to talk to a group of young pilots, their faces showing a mix of excitement and fear. "You all know what's at stake here," he said, trying to boost their confidence. "You are not just flying machines, you are the hope of humanity. Each of you has trained for this moment, and I believe in you." One pilot, a young woman named Emily, stepped forward. "Commander, what if we fail? What if the Empire is too powerful?" Bonner looked her in the eyes, his voice firm. "We won't fail. We are fighting for our lives, for our families, and for our future. Remember, they may have technology, but we have determination. We fight together, and together we will win." With renewed energy, the pilots nodded, their fear turning into resolve. Bonner felt a wave of pride wash over him. He had brought them together as a team, and now they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. As the countdown began, Bonner and his team prepared for launch. The dreadnoughts were lined up, engines humming and ready to roar into space. 30 seconds to launch," Sarah announced, her voice steady despite the chaos. "Brace yourselves, everyone," Bonner shouted, adrenaline pumping through him. "This is it! For Earth! For our families!" The room fell silent, every person focused on the mission ahead. As the countdown reached 0, Bonner shouted, "Launch!" The dreadnoughts shot into the sky, leaving Earth behind. Bonner watched through the viewing window, his heart racing. The fleet was a sight to behold, a powerful testament to human resilience and strength. They were no longer just a group of soldiers. They were warriors, united by a single purpose. As they soared into the unknown, Bonner felt a fierce determination within him. They would confront the Empire head-on, and they would fight for every life lost. With each passing moment, the stakes grew higher, but so did their resolve. The time for action had come, and Commander Bonner was ready to lead them into battle. The vastness of space opened up before Commander James Bonner and his fleet of dreadnoughts. As the ships glided silently through the dark void, Bonner felt a mixture of fear and excitement. This was the moment they had trained for, the moment they would strike back against the Galactic Empire for the lives lost in the recent attack. "Commander, we're approaching the Empire's outer defenses," Lieutenant Sarah Mitchell announced, her voice calm but filled with urgency. "We'll reach the target zone in approximately 10 minutes. Bonner nodded, his heart racing. Good. Prepare for cloaking. We need to approach without being detected. The crew began their final preparations, their movements swift and efficient. Bonner looked around the control room, seeing the determination in the eyes of his crew. Each person on this ship had a mission, and they all shared the same goal: to avenge the innocent lives taken by the Empire. Activate cloaking devices now, Bonner ordered. A low hum filled the air as the ships faded into invisibility. The Dreadnoughts glided forward, almost ghost-like, their shapes blending with the stars around them. As they neared the enemy's defenses, Bonner's heart pounded in his chest. He watched the readouts carefully, noting the positions of the Empire's ships. The Empire had a powerful fleet, but they were not prepared for the human forces that were now closing in on them. Enemy vessels are in sight, Sarah reported, her eyes fixed on the display. They don't seem to know we're here. We have the element of surprise. Bonner took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. Prepare to engage at my command. We strike hard and fast. No mercy. The crew responded with nods and murmurs of agreement. They had all lost something to the Empire, and now was their chance to fight back. Ready? Aim, fire, Bonner shouted. Suddenly, the Dreadnoughts emerged from cloaking, their weapons lighting up the darkness of space. Bright beams of energy shot out, striking the enemy ships with incredible force. The surprise attack sent shockwaves through the Empire's fleet, and chaos erupted as they scrambled to respond. Direct hits on multiple enemy vessels, Sarah exclaimed, her voice filled with exhilaration. They're disoriented. Bonner could hardly believe it. The first strike was working. The humans were hitting the Empire hard, taking down ships before they even had a chance to retaliate. It was exhilarating to see their plans come to life, but he knew they couldn't let up now. Keep the pressure on, Bonner commanded. We can't let them regroup. The Dreadnoughts maneuvered swiftly through the chaos, dodging incoming fire as they unleashed another barrage of energy blasts. Bonner felt the ship shudder slightly as the crew navigated through enemy defenses. He knew the odds were still against them, but he could see the tide of battle shifting. As the Dreadnoughts continued their assault, Bonner noticed a massive flagship of the Empire looming ahead. It was heavily armed and clearly the command center for the fleet. That's our target, he shouted, pointing at the flagship. We need to take it down. Firing all weapons, Sarah announced as the crew worked quickly to lock onto the enemy flagship. The Dreadnoughts focused their firepower, sending a volley of blasts towards the massive ship. The flagship returned fire, and Bonner felt a sudden jolt as their ship took hits. Shields holding steady, Sarah yelled, but Bonner knew they couldn't withstand many more hits. Concentrate fire on that flagship, he ordered, adrenaline coursing through his veins. If we can take it down, we'll cripple their command structure. The Dreadnoughts poured everything they had into the flagship, energy beams lighting up the dark expanse of space. Bonner felt hope swell in his chest as the flagship began to falter. They were making progress. Just as victory seemed within reach, alarms blared throughout the control room. Commander! Enemy reinforcements detected, Sarah shouted, her face pale. They're coming from behind the asteroid belt! Bonner's heart sank. They had underestimated the Empire's response time. Get us out of here, he ordered. We need to regroup and prepare for a counterattack. As the Dreadnoughts maneuvered to escape the incoming onslaught, Bonner felt the weight of responsibility settle heavily on his shoulders. They had made a strong initial strike, but the battle was far from over. The Empire would retaliate, and they needed to be ready. Prepare for evasive maneuvers, he shouted, focusing on the task at hand. He couldn't let his crew down. They had fought bravely, and he would ensure they lived to fight another day. The Dreadnoughts twisted and turned, dodging the incoming fire. Bonner kept his eyes on the flagship, watching as it continued to take damage. They had struck a significant blow, but the fight was still ongoing. They needed to regroup and plan their next move. As they maneuvered into a safer position, Bonner couldn't shake the feeling that the battle was only beginning. The Empire would not let this defeat go unanswered, and they would need every ounce of strength to survive the storm that was sure to come. Prepare for our next strike, he said, determination filling his voice. This is just the start. We will show them the strength of humanity. The Dreadnoughts rallied around their commander, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. They had taken the first strike, but the war was far from over. The atmosphere in the control room was tense as Commander James Bonner and his crew regrouped after their initial strike against the Galactic Empire. They had struck hard, but the Empire was regrouping quickly. Reports flooded in about enemy reinforcements arriving, and Bonner knew they needed a new strategy if they were going to turn the tide of battle. "Commander, we've sustained some damage, but our shields are holding," Lieutenant Sarah Mitchell reported, her eyes scanning the screens. "We can still fight, but we need to act fast before the Empire consolidates their forces." Bonner nodded, feeling the weight of the moment. The initial success had given them confidence, but the fight was far from over. "What's the status of the fleet?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. "Most of our dreadnoughts are ready for action, but we lost a few in the initial assault," Sarah replied. "We can't afford to lose any more ships. We need to be smart about this." Bonner took a moment to think. They had surprised the Empire once, but they couldn't rely on that strategy again. "Let's set a trap," he suggested, his mind racing. "We know the Empire will want to retaliate quickly. If we can lure them into a vulnerable position, we can hit them harder." "How do we do that?" Sarah asked, intrigued by the idea. "We'll feign weakness," Bonner explained. "We'll pull back a few of our dreadnoughts, making it look like we're retreating. When they come after us, we'll spring the trap and hit them from behind." Sarah's eyes lit up with understanding. "That could work. If we can draw them into the asteroid belt, we can use the environment to our advantage." Bonner smiled, feeling a sense of hope. "Exactly. Let's prepare the fleet for a controlled retreat. We'll let them think they've got us on the run. Once they come close, we'll launch our counterattack." As the crew began to implement Bonner's plan, a sense of urgency filled the air. They communicated quickly, making sure every ship was in position. Bonner watched as the dreadnoughts started to pull back, creating the illusion of a retreat. "Remember, we need to stay calm," Bonner reminded his crew. "The Empire is watching us. They'll think we're scared, but we are ready to fight." As they moved closer to the asteroid belt, Bonner's heart raced. He knew the Empire would soon take the bait. He just hoped that they could execute the plan successfully. The crew monitored enemy movements, their tension palpable as they awaited the Empire's response. Moments later, a transmission came in from the Empire's command ship. "The humans are retreating! Pursue them!" the commander barked. Bonner felt a rush of excitement. They were taking the bait. "Now," Bonner shouted. "Prepare for engagement! Activate all weapons!" As the Empire's ships surged forward, eager to finish off what they thought was a weakened fleet, Bonner ordered the dreadnoughts to turn back and face their foes. The tables were about to turn. "Open fire!" Bonner commanded. Energy blasts erupted from the dreadnoughts, lighting up the darkness of space as they targeted the unsuspecting Empire ships. The surprise attack caught the enemy completely off guard. "Direct hits on multiple enemy vessels," Sarah shouted, her voice filled with exhilaration. The crew cheered as the dreadnoughts launched their assault, hitting the Empire ships with everything they had. Bonner's strategy was working. The Empire's forces, now trapped in the narrow confines of the asteroid belt, were unable to maneuver effectively. Dreadnoughts took advantage of the terrain, using asteroids for cover and launching precise attacks. "Commander, we've destroyed 2 enemy ships and damaged several more," Sarah reported, her face beaming with excitement. "Keep pushing! Don't let up!" Bonner shouted, feeling the adrenaline surge through him. This was the moment they had trained for, the moment they would show the Empire that humanity would not be crushed. The dreadnoughts moved with precision, striking hard and fast. Bonner could see the enemy's confidence falter as they struggled to respond to the sudden onslaught. The tide of battle was turning, and Bonner felt a sense of empowerment. But just as victory seemed within reach, an ominous warning blared through the control room. "Commander, more enemy reinforcements are approaching from the left," a technician called out, panic creeping into their voice. Bonner's heart sank. "How many?" "Looks like a full squadron." "They're coming in hot! Prepare to engage," Bonner shouted, his heart racing. The battle was becoming more chaotic, but they couldn't afford to lose their momentum now. "We've come too far to back down. Divert power to the forward shields," Sarah commanded, her voice strong. "We need to hold them off while we finish off the remaining ships." The dreadnoughts regrouped, forming a protective line to shield against the incoming enemy. Bonner felt the pressure mounting, but he also felt the resolve of his crew. They had already achieved so much, and they could not allow the Empire to reclaim the upper hand. "Stay focused," Bonner shouted. "We're fighting for our future, for our families." We will not let the Empire take that away from us. As the battle raged on, Bonner's determination grew stronger. The fight was tough, but he could see the Empire's forces faltering. They were showing signs of weakness, and he knew that if they pressed on, they could win this battle. "Prepare for one final push," he commanded. "Let's finish this!" With renewed energy, the Dreadnoughts surged forward, united in purpose. Together they would turn the tide and show the Empire the strength of humanity. The battle was not just for revenge, it was for survival. And they would fight until the very end. The battle raged on, energy beams and explosions lighting up the dark expanse of space. Commander James Bonner stood at the helm of the Dreadnought, heart racing as his crew fought fiercely against the Galactic Empire. They had turned the tide, but the fight was far from over. "Commander, we've destroyed several enemy ships," Lieutenant Sarah Mitchell shouted, her voice barely audible over the alarms and chaos. "But they're still coming." Bonner nodded, trying to focus on the battle unfolding around them. The Dreadnoughts had successfully caught the Empire off guard, but reinforcements had arrived quickly. Now, the enemy was regrouping, and it was crucial that they finish this fight. "Don't let up!" Bonner urged his crew. "We've come too far to lose now. We need to keep pushing forward." The Dreadnoughts fired relentlessly, energy blasts connecting with enemy ships, causing them to explode in fiery bursts. The crew cheered as they watched the Empire's fleet crumble under the pressure. Each victory fueled their determination, and they felt empowered by the knowledge that they were fighting for their lives and the future of humanity. "Commander, we've got incoming from the left," Sarah shouted, pointing at the screen. "They're trying to flank us."